Good afternoon, everybody, and I'd like to welcome everybody to this seminar where we're looking at what's going to be shown at LABELEXPO Europe 2013. So first of all, my name is Andy Thomas. I'm the editor of Labels and Labeling magazine. I've been working with Mike Fairley on Labels and Labeling now since 1998. I also have a second magazine that I work for, which is the Packprint World, which looks at more the web packaging side of the market. So I'm going to give you a brief overview of the kind of main things that you can see at the show. And obviously there are almost 600 exhibitors, so I can only give you a brief flavor of the general trends at the show. So I'd like to start off then by talking about the digital inkjet trail. Now the inkjet trail is something which we have done in previous years at LABELEXPO. This has normally been one feature in the show. This time a number of inkjet press manufacturers will be printing the same label on their stands rather than having it as a separate standalone feature. So the inkjet companies involved will be Domino, Durst, EFI Jetron, Epson, Heidelberg and Stork. Now these companies are all going to be printing the same food, pharmaceutical and industrial labels. At the same time, Xeikon will be printing the same label for a toner-based comparison. Everybody will be using the same materials, which are supplied by UPM Raflatac, Flexo and Herma. The origination files were all developed by ESCO, so everybody is basically printing from the same file. So you'll be able to go along to each of these stands and pick up a booklet in which you'll be able to find everybody's labels, including sort of people who are printing it there and then on that stand. So enable you to make comparisons between the different systems. Also to see what can be achieved with inkjet today. If you look at the digital launches at this show, let's start off with Hewlett-Packard, HP Indigo. We see from HP Indigo for the first time since Drupa the launch of the 20,000 and the 30,000 digital presses. Now these are really a new generation of machines, B2 format. The 20,000 is for flexible packaging really, but also can print labels, and we'll be printing labels at the show. It'll be seen with the Edel ABG Q3000 finishing system. This is a dedicated B2 finishing system developed specifically for this machine by Edel and ABG. You'll also be able to see the 30,000, which is a digital carton press with an inline coater developed by Trasu. Also on the HP stand will be a whole list of partners, from everything from software to digital finishing systems. From Xeikon, we see the launch of the ICE toner, the ICE toner. Now what this means is that for the first time, this toner-based system, which uses heat to bond the particles to the substrate, so up to now you've not been able to handle heat-sensitive materials, but now you can. With the ICE toner, you can print heat-sensitive materials on the Xeikon digital press. We also see Xeikon demonstrating inline carton production. And I'll talk a little more about this when I come to talk about the package print workshop later on. If we look at the inkjet, see there are an enormous number of new inkjet suppliers to the market. We've really seen all the big commercial inkjet players now moving into the labels market for the first time and really making a major commitment to it. In terms of trends, we see inkjet machines getting wider and more productive. We see a trend from CMYK to extended gamut color systems, up to 7 colors. We see more opaque whites being developed. We also see the ability to inkjet varnishes and coatings. So for example, with the inkjet line you can now spot varnish, matte or gloss, and also looking at coatings delivered by inkjet heads. We look at what's being launched at the show. These are just a couple of highlights. On the Epson stand, Epson will have their first LED UV cured single pass press. The existing Epson press is a XY plotter system, which is high quality but relatively slow. This is the first time that they've had a single pass machine, and it will use their new LED heads. Screen will be showing the TruePress Jet L350 UV, which again is Screen's first single pass UV inkjet press. It was premiered and previewed at Drupa. It's now fully commercially available, as it was not at the time of Drupa. This will be distributed in Europe by Dantex. On the Durst stand, we see the new Tau 330 press being shown for the first time with an inline laser die cutting system. I'll talk some more about laser die cutting a little later on. Also, Durst shows low migration inks, which obviously open up significant new markets for inkjet. On the Friday of the show, in the morning, my colleague Mike Fairley will be giving a digital masterclass. For those of you who don't know Mike, he founded Labels and Labeling back in 1978 and really is the guru of the industry. So Mike will be hosting this masterclass, at which he will also launch the new book, the Digital Labels How-To book. This is the second edition of the industry's most comprehensive book, looking at all aspects of digital printing, origination, and finishing. It will be given free to the participants in the digital masterclass. And basically, there'll be a program of industry-leading presenters under Mike's chairmanship. So to come back to digital printing and moving to finishing, one of the interesting things at the show, I think, laser die cutting. Now, it's been around for a long time, laser die cutting. I can remember seeing back in 2000 the very first systems. They've been around for some time, but now they're becoming fully commercialized, and we see more and more inkjet press manufacturers now, not just the inkjet guys, but primarily the inkjet guys now having laser die cutting, laser finishing in line with the press. So just a few examples at this show: EFI Jetron, Durst, as we said, INX, on the Spartanix stand. We also see AB Graphics, for example, be showing a standalone laser, but also one integrated into the Digicon 2 digital label finishing system. Other companies showing standalone modular laser die cutting systems include Cartes, and there are others. If we move to conventional presses, there are some very interesting developments on the conventional press side. And again, we see the launch of several world launches of new Flexo and offset machines. The big trend in conventional presses really is automation. Automation, waste reduction, pre-make ready. And what this is aiming to do is to bring down the cutoff level against digital. So really sort of bring down the kind of cutoff point between digital and conventional printing. As part of this process, we also see on the converting end of the press development of fast change die cutting units. So for example, it would be on the Mark Andy presses show with the QC-DC system and the Nilpeter revolver system. This all aims to increase the productivity at the die cutting end of the press. Modular process units. When we look at conventional machinery now, more and more presses are being sold for value-added work with more and more complex combinations of modular process units. And this shows some of the developments will be inline flatbed, foil, and embossing systems, which basically gives you the foiling power of a flatbed unit as part of a rotary press line. Gravure, we're seeing more and more gravure units now being sold. This can be for whites, for metallics, or for cold seal adhesives on flexible packaging. Inline color measurement. if you look at what the inspection equipment suppliers are doing at the moment, a lot of them are now looking to measure the color on the running web. And what this will allow you to do will be to specify, or for the end user to specify a delta E measurement, and then for you to be able to give the end user a printout at the end of the job demonstrating that the entire job, the entire role is in specification, color specification. LED curing. Again, LED is a technology which has been around for some time, and particularly on digital presses. But the real new development, I think, at this Label Expo is we'll see LED UV curing on full-speed Flexo presses. So you'll be able to see on the Mark Andy stand a P3, a performance P3 press with the ProLED. This is Mark Andy's own branded LED system, ProLED, and they're working with Flint. Flint are supplying the inks, and so you'll get a really sort of have a look at the press, see it running at full speed, see it curing the full range of inks. It's also a full system, so it includes varnishes, for example. We've also now seen other ink suppliers have now joined Flint. So, for example, Seedwork will be showing at the show its own LED inks, and on the Seedwork stand will be a Gallus EM280 press demonstrating full LED UV curing. Lamp systems, well, companies including Phosion, ITL, IST, Honla, but pretty much all the major lamp suppliers are now looking to move also to offer LED lamp systems. At the moment, I think we'd all agree that the investment in an LED system is significantly higher than in a conventional UV system, because the LEDs come from a kind of wider commodity market. It's difficult to influence the price of the LEDs, but the companies which are showing LED curing would argue that there is a definite return on investment because there's less energy input. You don't need chill rolls on heat-sensitive materials. You don't need shutter systems or the press stops. It's on-off and so on. So there are return on investment arguments for LED curing. At the same time, at this Label Expo, you'll also be able to see the really extraordinary strides that are being made by the conventional UV lamp suppliers. And just as one example, you might look on the GEW stand at their E2C system, and also the new power supply units which are being launched at this show. Now, we're talking less here about what's so it's not really about the power it takes to cure. It's about the power input into the lamps and how much you can cure to a given power input. And one converter that I visited recently using these new conventional lamp heads were able to run a complete new press because of the gains that they got in power generation by having lower power input into the UV curing system. If we look at the machines which are being launched at the show, they're both Offset and Flexo. Offset has kind of been in and out of the narrow web label industry. It's been very successful at the higher end of the market. I think what we see at this show is the development, again, of computerized, make-ready, of more efficient offset systems. Amongst companies who are launching machines at the show is Nilpita. Nilpita has their new MO5. This is a global launch for Nilpita. The MO5 is targeted more at the flexible packaging market, although it can also convert labels. And Nilpita here joins a growing number of companies who are targeting now offset at the package printing market, at the web package printing market. Other launches include the Omet XFlex X6, and this is a combination press between UV offset and UV Flexo. Rotatech have a dedicated intermittent version of their Brava press, a 330mm wide machine, as well as a wider format full Brava press. So these are, again, just some of the machines which are being launched. If we turn to Flexo, MPS is launching a new range of machines, which is the EF range, which come in a different configuration of automation systems. They'll be showing the most advanced of those systems, which is the APC Advanced. Nuova Due will be showing its M5 so-called digital Flexo press, which has the ability in a closed-loop system to control both register and print pressure. Focus shows its E-Flex press. Chinese company Weifeng Donghong, which is a new entrant to the European market, shows its DH520 machine. And Norpeter shows two presses which have only been seen so far at LABELEXPO in Chicago last year, which is the FB3 and the new enhanced FA4. And it's just a selection of the new machines which are being launched. To talk about the package printing workshop, we ran our first package print workshop at the Chicago show last year. What we're really aiming to show here is the opportunities for narrow web converters who are looking to diversify into packaging. So it's really about narrow and mid-web production of packaging materials, by which we really mean flexible packaging and cartons. So at the package print workshop, which will be run twice daily, 11 o'clock in the morning and 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and then just 11 o'clock on the last day of the show, will be hosted by my colleague Nick Coombs. And Nick is the consultant editor of Pack Print World magazine. We're going to see Gidue printing flexible packaging on a 370mm wide M3 digital Flexo press. Then there'll be inline digital carton production carried out by Xeikon on a 3500 press with inline finishing unit. So there'll be presentations on the opportunities also for narrow web converters in these markets, because if you're going to move into flexible packaging or cartons, they're obviously already established markets. You need to know where the niche is and where you can make money by making these kind of investments. There'll also be technical presentations, for example, looking at compatible substrates, inks, the kind of surface treatment that you need to carry out before you can print on these packaging materials. If we look at the materials now, just turning to this side of the show, one of the key features of this LABELEXPO will be the launch of a new Linerless system developed by Retrama in combination with industry partners Prati and ILTI, I-L-T-I. ILTI is a company which manufactures applicator machines, and they have manufactured the Linerless applicator head. What's really different about the Retrama core system is that the label converter just receives what is a standard laminate and then does not die cut it. And on the back of the liner there is a silicone layer which is coated by Retrama. After printing, the web is delaminated, the liner is flipped over, bonded to the top of the face material, and this then becomes a single-ply linerless roll. The other really key aspect of the show in terms of materials is sustainable solutions. And we're talking about really a whole range of things here, from compostable adhesives to new materials which in some way help the recycling process or help us to save material by being thinner. I'd just like to point out one interesting development, which is the Avery Dennison Clean Flake bottle-to-bottle film portfolio. Now these are recyclable materials which use an innovative adhesive film combination to separate cleanly from PET flakes within the recycling process. And this allows pure PET to be recycled, which is pure enough to go straight into the manufacture of new packaging films and shells. So it's an interesting development. Also, if you're looking at in terms of in-house materials production, ETI will be showing a 13-inch mini Cohesio. It's basically a smaller version of the company's existing Cohesio machine, which allows you to convert your own materials and to print and convert in line as an option. So one typical application of the ETI system will be if you're reverse printing a self-adhesive film, then you're coating the adhesive underneath the print, and then you're laminating your own liner. They'll also be showing the Pellicut system, which allows the cutting down onto an 18-micron liner. So that's an interesting developments from ETI. Turning to the pre-press market, we're looking here at high-definition Flexo printing. Now, HD Flexo has really revolutionized the flexographic printing environment by providing extremely plates image that are very high definition. And when this is allied with Analog's rolls with very fine cell counts, the correct software and inks which will release from those cells. We're now looking at Flexo, which at its best now matches offset and gravure in terms of, if you look at a vignette, if you look at it at a distance of a product on the shelf, it's very hard to tell the difference now between HD Flexo, between gravure and between offset. So ESCO have the latest development of the HD Flexo system, and Kodak have their own system, which is the Flexo NX. So both very much worth taking a look at to see what the latest state of the art is in Flexo quality. The integration of management information systems into digital and conventional workflows. So what we're looking at here is really the ability to integrate, for example, an ESCO graphics management system with, for example, a CERM or a LabelTrax wider MIS system which manages the label plant, which means that information flows, for example, from estimating onto the ink mixing department, and from there down to the graphics management department, to the planning department. So we're seeing one seamless flow of information. So from when the file goes into the system at one end, automated pre-flighting, there's some manual pre-flighting, then the file goes right the way through, automated imposition, automated planning onto different size presses, automated moves down to conventional or a digital print finishing route. We're also seeing a very interesting new development, which is integration of management information systems with visual inspection systems. So, for example, you'll be able to define in the pre-press system the areas of the image which you want to control. For example, where you want to control the color of a particular area with the new generation of spectrophotometric camera systems. So you'll be able to define all this now at the front end in the pre-press, and then the camera will automatically go and inspect that part of the image. Very interesting thing about LABELEXPO, every LABELEXPO, obviously we have the big headline names on the digital side and on the conventional side, big materials manufacturers. There's very much also at the same time happening around the show, and many visitors to the show will just dedicate one day to going around seeing some of the perhaps smaller stands, really sort of getting an idea of what's happening on what you might call the ancillaries area of the show. So this is, for me, just a very brief selection, by no means comprehensive, just a couple of things to look out for. On the Bearhalter stand, we see a web-fed in-mold label processing system. As many of you will be aware, most in-mold labels today are delivered sheet-fed. It's quite a challenge dealing with a web, processing a web, in-mold label web, dealing with static electricity, for example, and these thin materials, which then need to be stacked into a magazine ready to go to the end user. So Bearhalter is showing the latest in IML processing systems. Cocker and Beck show an interesting new development of the Gapmaster, which is an auto sensing system which automatically and dynamically adjusts the printing, the die cutting pressure gap. Cocker and Beck are also showing a gap master for intermittent cutting units for the first time. On the ink mixing side, again, ink mixing systems have been around for many years now, but on the GSE stand, it's interesting to see how they are integrating ink mixing with the prepress, with MIS systems. I know they've been working very closely, for example, with ESCO and CERN, whereby the information from the prepress file can automatically go into the ink mixing system. Because obviously on the PDF, you know the densities of the inks, you know the color references of the inks. So it's automatically then using that information to go to the ink mixing and distribution system. Another interesting stand to visit is the J.M. Heaford stand in terms of plate mounting. Heaford bring their FTS plate mounter, which is shortlisted for an award in the Global Label Awards, which will be given out on the first night of the show. What this basically is it's a cylinder which is booked down onto the plate. So rather than wrapping the plate around the cylinder, onto the plate effectively rolls up the plate. So there's no danger of air getting trapped, for example, and it's an extremely accurate way of mounting a plate on a cylinder. Alphasonics showing an interesting new cleaning system for high-definition analog rolls. As we said earlier, if you're printing with a high-definition Flexo workflow, one of the most critical aspects is you need to be able to clean these very high cell count analogs rolls from the UV inks, which are clearly pretty viscous inks. So it's a very interesting development on the Alphasonics stand to see how that workflow fits together. So finally, this is my final slide. The other things to see at the show, well, if you look at the inks, I'm really looking at the development of the new low migration ink series by pretty much every manufacturer. Now, low migration inks are clearly important if you're doing flexible packaging, but also increasingly for labels which are used for food applications. More and more end users are now getting concerned about the possibility of migration through containers, for example, through plastic containers, not just the ink, but also the adhesive. So they're looking in the future to specify low migration adhesive and ink systems. I've visited at least three label converters recently who are all switching over completely to low migration ink systems. It doesn't just mean the inks itself, it also means you have to clean the press properly, everything has to be a low migration workflow. But that's really anticipating the day when end users just simply insist that inks have to, for food applications have to be low migration. The new series of inspection systems now able to control reflective materials, for example, foils, holograms, and 3D effects. And finally, I mentioned it briefly earlier, but thinner materials are such a big trend at the show. And although there are big advantages in terms of environmental footprint, carbon footprint, in terms of more labels per roll, for the converter there are many challenges when you're die cutting onto a very thin liner, very thin filament liner. So it really is worthwhile going around to the flexible die manufacturers and seeing what solutions they have to these very challenging materials. So that brings us to the end of this webinar. I'd like to invite anybody to submit any questions, which you can type onto the questions area of your seminar software. Okay, I've had one question already. Are there any major players in the label industry who will not be at the show? Okay, it's an interesting question. Probably the group of people who are missing from the show are the sheet-fed press manufacturers. Obviously, if you look at globally, probably 40% of the label industry is still wet glue labels. So we've never had any of the sheet-fed guys, the KBAs or the Heidelbergs or the Kamoris exhibiting at LABELEXPO. I think they see it. They tend to show those presses more at the commercial print shows, the IPEXs and the Droopers. Although, if you look at finishing of sheet-fed labels, all the major finishing suppliers are at the show. Also, all the manufacturers of wet glue label materials and inks are obviously also at the show. Okay, I've been asked about the Gallus. Will Gallus be introducing anything new at the show? The big news on the Gallus stand is really, I think, the Heidelberg Linerprint L digital press, digital inkjet press. Now, recently, Gallus and Heidelberg signed an agreement whereby Gallus will be distributing the inkjet, which basically now gives Gallus a digital press division. And what they're really emphasizing at the show is the integration of digital and conventional presses. So they have their ECSC digital label converter, which works with the Linerprint L, and they'll be showing how you can automate a workflow from pre-press through to which route, conventional route, or digital route, conventional or digital finishing. So this is really the emphasis on the Gallus stand, although they do also promise us a new package for the granite press. So we'll have to see what that is at the show. I haven't seen anything yet. Okay, I've been asked to talk about the feature areas of the show. As I said, there are really two main feature areas, which is the digital workshop, the digital inkjet workshop. You'll need to go to the individual press manufacturer stands to pick up the samples. I think I said earlier. On the package print workshop, what will be happening is there'll be a demonstration of flexible packaging production on the Guidoué press, then there'll be a demonstration of digital carton in-line production on the Xeikon press. Then there'll be a series of presentations from both those companies on the technical and marketing aspects of those machines. Each one will last probably for half an hour, but there will be a question opportunity to be interactive, to ask questions as well. Okay, I've been asked to talk about inspection because I didn't mention inspection too much. That was really because of time constraints, and certainly not because there's nothing interesting happening. As I said, one of the most interesting things happening on the inspection side is the development of spectrophotometry. So it's the development of cameras which can measure color on the press. And if you look at where we're going eventually with this technology, if you look at the things like the Pantone Live technology, where you can define the color on a particular substrate and save that as a value, an LAB value, which can be used by the designer, can be used through the pre-press stage, so through the proofing stage, and then the camera on the machine is then controlling for that exact color space. So we're really looking to take color management up to a completely new level. So that's really one aspect of inspection. The second thing that we're seeing, although it's not new at this show, is the move of inspection systems onto the press and off the rewinder. So we're seeing inspection being carried out on the press, and then that information is then being edited, for which are faults where the label needs to be taken off, and that's being used then to control automatically the rewinder. So we're seeing more and more of these kind of workflows. I've been asked whether MPS will be showing anything new. As I think I said earlier, they will be showing the new Flexo range of presses. which are available, as I say, in different levels of automation. This is the MPS EF APC Advanced, which will be at the show, along with the company's offset press and a new entry-level Flexo press. So a lot happening on the MPS stand. I've been asked whether LABELEXPO will continue to expand into the flexible packaging industry. It's a very interesting question. We will not, as a show, be moving into wide web flexible packaging. In the same way as we haven't encouraged the sheet-fed presses at the show, we would not be encouraging the wide web Flexo and gravure presses, even though a lot of label work, a lot of film label work is obviously converted on these machines. Our focus at LABELEXPO is and will be for the foreseeable future for the narrow web label printer or the mid-web label printer, so sort of 500-600 wide machines, moving into flexible packaging printing. So that's really more of a diversification of the business. What we're seeing at the moment is that a lot of the wide web flexible packaging guys, or the guys who are converting, say, shrink sleeve labels on wide web machines or wraparound filmic labels, are increasingly being asked for shorter runs. Now, at the moment, that work is being farmed out, if you like, or it's being subcontracted to narrow web printers or to mid-web printers. So effectively, on a modern label press, as long as you're controlling the heat on the press, as long as you have proper servo control register, it's possible, and chill drums, it's possible to print and to convert flexible packaging. So there's been a whole movement from the wide web guys giving this workout to people in our sector. So there's obviously a growing trend, as there was in the labels market, towards shorter runs, and it's just a question of where the label converter moving into flexible packaging can find the niches. I've been asked about Lander at the show. There'll be no. So Benny Lander won't be showing, won't have a stand at the show. I think, in fact, my colleague is actually at a breakfast meeting with Benny Lander this morning, so we'll find out what his plans are. But certainly for this show, there will not be a Lander machine. Okay, I've been asked for, apart from the Chinese manufacturer that I mentioned, which was the Weifeng Donghong, what other suppliers will be from outside Europe? Well, there'll be, for example, Etirama will be showing a machine. There are a couple of Indian companies who will be showing machines. Multiflex, for example, is one. So there is a small number of press suppliers from outside Europe. We also have, of course, if you do regard them as being outside European suppliers, the Japanese and Taiwanese suppliers who are already established in the global market. I mean, companies like Shiki, like Lintech. So all the manufacturers, established manufacturers from Taiwan and from Japan will all be at the show. I guess the kind of interest which has been raised is in terms of the Chinese equipment. We haven't really seen, shall we say, the kind of first-class equipment that European printers have yet been prepared to invest in. So the company like Weifeng Donghong, for example, has now set up a chain of European distributors. So this is really a kind of a step upwards for Chinese press manufacturing. Okay, thank you. I've just been told that our time has come to an end. If there are any other questions, please do contact me by email. give you my email address, which is athomas, athomas, at tarsus.co.uk. Failing that, I very much look forward to seeing you all at LABELEXPO. We do have a stand there, so please do come and look us up and say any more questions. Please don't hesitate to get in touch with me. I'd like to thank everybody for your attention, and have a great show, and hope you